Age doesn't matter unless you're a cheese. I suppose the real old age begins when one looks backward rather than forward. As a grandfather, I'm entitled to a few words of advice to the young. Based upon my long and unvarying experience as a transgressor, I could sum up them with these answers to a oft-repeated question. What would you do or not do if you had to do it all over again? And I would spend more time with my children. I would make more money before spending it. And I would learn the joys of wine instead of hard liquor. I would not smoke cigarettes. And I had pneumonia. I would not marry the 5th time. What a wonderful life I've had. I've only wished I'd realized it sooner. For the past 80 years, I've started each day in the same manner. It's not a mechanical routine, but somehow an essential to my daily life. I go to the piano and I play 2 preludes, figures of Bach. I cannot think of doing otherwise. It is sort of a benediction on the house. And when it's not only for the meaning of me, it's for the rediscovery of the world in which I have to enjoy being a part of. It fills me with an awareness of a wonder of life, with a feeling of incredible marvel of being a human being. Security is the most superstition. Avoiding danger is no safer than a long run than an outright exposure. Life is either daring adventure or it's nothing. There are dreams of love, life, adventure in all of us, but we're also so sadly filled with the reasons why we shouldn't try. These reasons seem to protect us, but in the truth they imprison us. They hold us a life at a distance, life to be over sooner than we think. And if we have bikes we ride and people to love, now is the time. If we have bikes to ride and people to love, now is the time. Train your will to concentrate on a limited objective. When young, you spread your effort over too many things, and you try and you fail. What it doesn't matter is all life is failures in the end. The thing is to get sport out of trying. I have thousands of opinions still, but that is down from millions, as I always know I know nothing. There are only 2 ways to live your life. One is though nothing is a miracle, and the other is though everything is a miracle. Age doesn't matter unless you're a cheese. What is life? It's a flash of a firefly in the night. It's a breath of a buffalo in the wintertime. It is a little shadow which runs across the grass and loses itself in the sunset. The days of the struggle are over. I should be able to say I can look back now and tell myself that I don't have a single regret, but I do. Many years ago, a very wise man named Bernard Baruch told me aside to put his arms around my shoulder, and Harpo, my boy, he said, I'm going to give you the 3 pieces of advice, 3 things you should always remember. My heart jumped and I glowed with expectation. I was going to hear the magic password to rich and full life from the master himself. Yes, sir. And I said, and he told me the 3 things I regret I've forgotten and what they were. I've forgotten what the 3 things were. You make it seems to be a simple choice, and you make what seems to be a simple choice. Choose a man or a job or a neighborhood, and what you have chosen is not a man or a job or a neighborhood, but you've chosen a life. The present is an ever-moving shadow that divides yesterday from tomorrow. In that lies hope. Each must learn for himself the highest wisdom. It cannot be taught in his words. Men who work cannot dream, and wisdom comes to us in dreams. I don't care, frankly, what people think. I do what I like. Never retire. Do what you want to do and keep it doing, but don't do it on Friday. Take Friday off. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, do some fishing. Do sexual activities. Watch Fred Astaire movies. Then Monday through Thursday, do what you've been doing all your life, unless it's lifting bags and potatoes off the back of the truck. I mean, after 85, that's hard to do. My point is, live fully and don't retreat. It isn't for the moment that you are struck by the need of courage, but for the long uphill climb back to sanity and faith and security. Carl Jung said the part of his struggle on earth is to recognize that the loyalty in ourselves. I think when we do, we can also recognize the royalty of others. That is the secret of love thy neighbor as thyself. We are all born of royalty in a gold box, even a ragman's son. Within us is a tiny seeds of godliness, the Spirit of God, the Sheshanah, that throughout our lives that we must learn to nourish it. All pattern is life, but we can't always see the pattern when we are part of it. At 80, I believe that I'm a far more cheerful person than I was at 20 or 30. The most definite thing would be is that being a teenager again, youth may be glorious, but it is also painful to endure. Moreover, what is called youth is not youth. It's rather something like premature old age. You know that I'm at death's door, but the trouble is that I'm afraid to knock. When I was very young, I thought about the old age would be like, and it didn't seem very real. I assumed I would be exactly the same as I was then, except that I might have a long white beard like Father Christmas and just have to shave it. I planned to eat whatever I wanted, mozzarella, pasta, rich desserts, and I would travel and see all the museums I never had seen a time before. One day I looked into the mirror and thought, where did the old man come from? Then I realized he was me, and all I wanted to do was work. Aging seems to be the only available way to live a long life. When you get to the end of all the light, you know it is time to step into the darkness of the unknown. Faith is knowing that one of the 2 things shall happen. Either you will be given something solid to stand on, or you will be taught how to fly. You do what you can for as long as you can, and when you finally can't, you do the next best thing. You back up, but you do not give up. The take simple views of living. I take a simple view of living. It is to keep your eyes open and get on with it. The secret of staying young is to live honestly, eat slowly, and lie about your age. Here's with the whitened hair, desires failing, strength ebony of him, and the sun goes down, and with only the serenity of calm warnings of the evening star left to him, he drank to life, to all it had been and what it was. It was to be a hooray. It is high time for me to depart from my age I know to begin see things as they really are. Worrying the most natural and spontaneous of all human functions, it is time to acknowledge this, perhaps even to learn to do it better. Worrying is the most natural and spontaneous of all human functions. It's time to acknowledge this and perhaps even learn to do it better. I cannot give you the formula for success, but I can give you the formula for failure, which is try to please everybody. Old age isn't for sissies. Nothing except possibly love and death are the importance of, even the importance of death is somewhat ephemeral, as no one has yet faxed back a reliable report. So nothing except possibly love or death are importance, or even the importance of death is somewhat ephemeral, as no one's ever faxed back a reliable report. If old age means a crown of thorns, the trick is to wear it jauntily. I don't know what I may seem to the world, but I know as to myself I seem to be only like a boy, playing in the seashore and diverting myself now and then, finding a smoother pebble or prettier shell than ordinary, whilst the great ocean of truth lay all undiscovered before me. Men have a fatal flaw. It's the yearning of love and romance, and the longing for love outlasts the capacity for sex. It persists to old age. I believe not theoretically, but from direct personal experience, that a few things happen to us, are purposely or accidental, and this includes suffering and grief, even of others. But sometimes one catches a glimpse of the link between these happinesses and these happenings, and I believe, even when I myself am being blind and deaf or even indifferent, in the existence of a mystery. There isn't anybody who doesn't like to see an old man make a comeback. Jimmy Connors seems to like a jerk. Jimmy Connors seemed like a jerk to me until he was 40. After that, I rooted him all the time. How could you not? You have to root for the people. I'm almost sure to be blotted out of the death, but sometimes I think not impossible that I may continue to live in some other manner after my physical death. I feel a suicide has the doubt. I feel every suicide has the doubt. Is what I am going to do worthwhile? Is what I'm going to do worthwhile? Will I be blotted out, or will I be continue to live on in another world? Or then Hamlet wonders, what dreams will come when we leave this body? The love to have our youth is superficial compared to the love that an old man has for his wife. To get it right, to be born with luck and else makes, never give up. Get the knack of getting people to help you, and also pitching yourself. A little money helps. What really gets the right is never. I repeat, never, under any condition, face the facts. To get it right, to be born with luck or else make it. Never give up. For the knack of getting people to help you, and also to pitching yourself. A little money helps, but what really gets it right is never, I repeat, never under any condition face the facts. I live by one principle: enjoy life. With no conditions. People say, if I had your health, if I had your money, or if I would enjoy myself. But it's not true. I would be happy even if I was lying sick in a hospital bed. I must come from the inside. That's the one thing that I can hope and contribute to my children, for example, is to make no conditions, and to understand that life is a wonderful thing, and to enjoy it every day to the full. I learned that one can never go back, one should not ever try to go back, and the essence of life is to go forward. Life really is a one-way street, learning and sex until rigor mortis. There is a delicate irony that fact to my first wife introduced to me to my second. Irony or plan. It is each man that must conclude to himself as hard as he tried. The man cannot believe in divine intervention, and still he cannot credit everything to happenstance. Somewhere lies an answer. I hope one day to find it. A woman of 90 said, M.D. Fortinel, then 95, death has forgotten us. Shh, said M.L. de Fortinel, putting his finger to his lips. A woman of 90 said, M. de Fortinel, then 95, death has forgotten us. Shh, said Fontenelle, putting the fingers to his lips. I have everything now, and I had 20 years ago, except now it's all lower. I have everything now that I had 20 years ago, except now it's all lower. I can live with the doubts of uncertainty and not knowing. I think it's more interesting to live not knowing than to have all the answers which might be wrong. I don't feel frightened to knowing things, by being lost in the mysterious universe without having any purpose, which is the way it is so far as I can tell. It doesn't frighten me at all. Every human being on this earth is born with a tragedy. He's born with the tragedy that he has to grow up. He has lost everything in the lovely. He must fight for a new loveliness in his own making, and it's a tragedy. A lot of people don't have the courage to do it. All of us have failed to match our dreams of perfection, so I rate us on the basis of a splendid failure to do the impossible. Good days are to be gathered like sunshine in the grapes, to be trodden, bottled into wines, and kept for the sip of ease besides the fire. If the traveler has a vintage well, he need trouble to wander no longer. The ruby moments glow in his glass at will. Never have I enjoyed youth so thoroughly as have I have my old age. The dominant thought of youth is to the bigness of the world, of age its smallness of the world. Show me a good loser and I'll show you an idiot. Work became more important to me as I grew older. When you're very young, there are competitive pleasures. Maybe you need less to make yourself happy because everything is new to you. The world of an old age is a shrinking world. Smaller things are magnified. It's like childhood. Few people are important to you, but they are very important to you. Little things are getting bigger. Food becomes more important, and it is your work that makes you feel young, not your love affairs. After a certain point, your love affairs make you feel older. I'm at the age where food has taken place of sex in my life. In fact, I've just had a mirror put over my kitchen table. I used to dread getting older because I thought that I wouldn't be able to do all the things I wanted to do. But now that I'm older, I found that I don't even want to do them. Never regret. If it's good, it's wonderful. If it's bad, it's an experience. So never regret. If it's good, it's wonderful. And if it's bad, it's an experience. In the greatest confusion, there is still an open channel to the soul. It may be difficult to find because in the midlife it is overgrown. Some of the wildest, thickest surround us to grow up, but the describe of it is as an education. But the channel is always there. It's our busyness to keep it open, to have access to the deepest part of ourselves, to keep that channel open. As long as you can admire love, then one is young forever. Go out on the limb. That's where the fruit is. One of the delights known to age is beyond the grasp of youth is that of not going. I've begun old age to understand how oddly we put it all together. We're so proud of the autonomy, we seldom ever realize the generosity of ourselves and just know stingingly with others, how stingy we are with others. One of the booby traps of freedom, which is boredom, on the other sides of isolation, is what we think well of ourselves. I know we see what I've helped myself to be the best cuts of my life's banquet, but yet I say, am I old? Who says I'm old? Is this an old man like this? Is an old man like this? Heart welcomes sweet flowers, laughter floats over fragrant cups. What can I do? What can I say? My hoary hair floats in the spring wind. Nothing happens, and nothing happens, and everything happens. Nothing happens, and nothing happens, and everything happens. Death is to wake up, and death is a wake-up call to the unavoidable mandate that makes enlightenment possible and helps our souls to grow. This is why Plato, when asked on his deathbed for one final word of advice, responded to his pupils, "Practice dying." One of the oddest things in life, I think, is the things one remembers. Don't try to go too fast. Learn your job. Don't ever talk until you know what you're talking about. And if you want to get along, then just go along. Life is full of miracles, but they're not always the ones to pray for. Literature as neglection, the old and their emotions. The novelist never told us that in life. As in the other matters, the young are just beginning, and the art of loving matures with the age and experience. I used to have a sign over my computer that read, "Old dogs can learn new tricks." But lately, sometimes I ask myself many more new tricks I want to learn. Wouldn't it be easier just to be outdated? Interviewer: to what do you attribute your longevity? Chef Julia Child: red meat and gin. I read a story of the group of Jews who were escaping the Nazis, and they were walking over the mountains, and they carried with them the sick and the old and the children. A lot of people fell from the wayside and said, "I'm a burden, go on without me." They were told the mothers that need respite to instead that just sitting there and dying would be taken on with their babies to walk on as far as they can. Once the old people got the babies close to their bosoms, they started walking. All they went over to the mountain, and they had a reason to live. They all went over the mountain and they all had a reason to live. I'm ready to meet my maker. Whether my maker is ready to ordeal with the meaning of me is another matter. Courage is very important. Like a muscle, it strengthens by use. A man can only do what a man can do, but if he does that each day, he can sleep at night and do it again the next day. If the devil were to offer me resurgence of what is commonly called virility, I'd decline. Just keep my liver and lungs in good working order, I'd reply, so I can go on drinking and smoking. It's a funny thing about life. If you refuse to accept anything but the best to very often get it. Now, it's funny thing about life is if you refuse to accept anything but the best, then you'll very often get it. I'm having a glorious old age. One of my greatest delights is that I've never outlived the most of my opposition. I always say that everything is possessed of infinity and eternity. Everything is possessed with infinity and eternity. The old know what they want. The young are sad and bewildered. When I see nothing annihilated, not even seen a drop of water wasted, I cannot suspect annihilation of souls or believe that he will suffer from a daily waste of millions of minds ready-made but now exist, but put himself to the continual trouble of making new ones. It isn't where you came from, it's where you're going that counts. When you're my age, you'll just risk being ill because then everyone says, oh, he's done for. When you're my age, you'll just risk being ill because then everyone will just says, oh, he's done for. Now that I'm 95 years old, looking back over the years, I've seen many changes taking place. So many intentions have been made. Things now go faster. In older times, things are not so rushed. I think people are more content, more satisfied with life than they are today. And don't nearly as much laughter and shouting as you did in my day. And the fun with us wouldn't be as fun now. In this age, I don't think people are as happy as they were worried. They're too anxious and getting ahead by their neighbors, and they're striving to get something better. I don't think this is the way to have too much now. We did with much less. The older one gets, the more one feels that the present must be enjoyed. It is a precious gift comparable to the state of grace. Old age and wear of time teach many things. Trying to hang out with youth, trying to hang out on what's really 20 years ago throws you totally off. All you've got to do with it is seek the abundance with the new thing and hang on to the old thing. You will not experience the new. If you hang on to the old thing, you'll not experience the new. So trying to hang on to the youth, just trying to hang on to what was really great 20 years ago throws you totally off. You've got to go with it. You have to go with it and seek the abundance that's in the new thing. If you hang on the old thing, you'll not experience the new thing. Perhaps one has to be old before one learns to be amused rather than shocked. Can one know oneself? The only thing I don't know anything about anyone anymore, it just seems that one changes from day to day and that every few years one becomes a new being. You're never too old to become younger. Even death is unreliable. Instead of 0, it may be some ghastly hallucination such as the square root of -1. From birth to 18, a girl needs good parents. From 18 to 35, she needs good looks. From 35 to 55, good personality. From 55 on, she needs good cash. The majority of people feel that she must be doing something at all times. Many who sit all day in the office to clean a house and work in a factory, they sit down on a sidewalk cafe and fold their arms and look at people. They're merely wasting time. They are wrong in watching people enjoying their life. They may only be truly alive. People tend to gain tolerance and grow more generous-spirited as they get older. But on the other hand, we often lose connectedness. We lose connectedness and some degree of interest of what's going on, so our generosity is not all that expensive to us. The once sacred churches have fallen into the dust and ashes. Yet now we set in our hearts eagerly upon money. We live, though, as if we were doomed to die on tomorrow, but we build houses as if we're going to go ahead and as if we're going to live forever in the world. Throughout life, we get clues that remain us in the direction we're supposed to be headed in. If you do not pay attention, then you make lousy choices, end up in the miserable life. And if you stay focused, then you'll learn to have lessons, and you'll get a good life, a full life, including good deaths. Friendship remains, somehow love remains. Friendship remains, somehow love remains, and the most precious gift, doubt. The whiter your hair becomes, the more ready people are to believe in what you say. You must learn day by day, year by year, broaden your horizons. The more things you love, the more you are interested in, the more you enjoy, the more you're indignant about, the more you have left when anything happens. You're only as old as you feel. A refrain one hears enough that you must have some truth to it, though your ecologist might disagree. Be an individualist. An individual. You'll be amazed at how much faster you get ahead. Ever tried, ever failed? No matter what, try again, fail better. It's too late. Nothing is too late till the tired heart shall cease to populate. Chaucer, Woodstock, from the Nightingales at 60 wrote the Canterbury Tales. Goethe, Weimar, toiling to the last, completing Faust when 80 years were past. There's indeed exceptions, but they show how far Gulf Stream of the youth may flow into Arctic regions of our lives. Moradi, Salatumas, the Masque of Pandora. How unnatural the imposed view. The passionate love belongs only to the young. The things are ripened towards the fruit of your life. It'll make you bright inside. No matter what your outside is, it is a shining thing. I cut my own hair. I got sick of barbers. I got sick of barbers because they talk too much. And too much of their talk was about to make my hair fall out. It's ill becoming for an old broad to sing about how bad she wants it. But it's ill becoming for an old broad to sing about how bad she wants it. But occasionally they do. Time is a substance I've made of. Time is a river which sweeps me along, and I am the river. It's a tiger which destroys me. I am the tiger, and the fire which consumes me. I am the fire. The world, unfortunately, is real, and unfortunately, I am Borges. Tomorrow, I shall haul down the flag of hypocrisy. I will devote my gray hairs to wine. My lifespan has reached 70, and if I don't enjoy myself now, when shall I? I don't have to be at peace with yourself. You don't have to be at peace with yourself. I love to laugh. I think a laughter can be a cure. I see it in a person's face. At age 40, when your face has lost the glow of youth, you're inside the starts of the form of the outside. Either the lines go up or they go down. If they go up, that's a good sign. Musicians don't retire. They stop when there's no more music in them. Swim, dance a little, go to Paris every August, and live within walking distance of 2 hospitals. All the cliches say that you have to grow older, you grow wiser. I don't feel that damn bit wiser. Wisdom is not concomitant with age. I've met some extremely stupid people that have hardened as they've grown older and become more selfish, intolerant, vindictive, driven to outrage easily and dwell in their disappointments. But a kind of an acceptance isn't really arrived at. I'm talking about graceful acceptance, a recognition of one's own foibles, one's own limitations. I'm not talking about physical limitations. Somewhat make the peace in the fact to you that trees, plants, and landscapes are going through an inevitable process. If you've got a living force and you're not using it, nature kicks up back, the blood boils like you like a put in a pot. In youth, we learn. In age, we understand. If you've got a living force and you're not using it, nature kicks back up. The blood boils just like you put in a pot. When you live with another person for 50 years, all of your memories are invested in that person like a bank account, or shared memories are not often to refer to them constantly. In fact, people do not have the past that you almost never say, do you remember that night we? But you don't have to. And the best of all, you know the other person does remember. Thus, the past is the part of the present. As long as the other person lives, it's better than any scrapbook, because you are both living scrapbooks. The secret to my success was that somehow I always managed to live and fly another day. Courage is a strange thing. One can never be sure of it. Wisdom is learning from all your experiences, which means being able to, and maybe you don't have to make the same mistakes over and over again. You know you're more tolerant, and oh God, how we need it in this world. Tolerance is on other people's religion, aims, points of views, just to be able to sit down and hear what a person's saying. If you have an important point to make, don't try to be subtle or clever. Use a pile driver, hit the point once, come back and hit it again, and hit it a third time with a tremendous whack. Live your life and forget your age. If you want immortality, make it. Well, I'll tell you, young fella, to be truthful and honest and perfectly frank about it, I'm 83 years old, which ain't bad. To be truthful and honest and frank about it, the thing I'd like to be right now is an astronaut. To be 70 years old is like climbing the Alps. You reach a snow-crowned summit and you see behind you a deep valley stretching miles and miles away, and before you the summits higher and wider, which you may have the strength to climb or may not. You sit down and meditate and wonder, which will it be? Those docs, they've always asked you how to live long. I tell them, well, if I'd known I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of myself. The ordinary objects of human endeavors, properly outward success, luxury, have been seeming to be contemptible. All these luxuries, of course, cars, success, everything seems to be contemptible. I've never looked upon the ease of happiness in ends of themselves, such as ethical basis. I call more proper for a herd of swine, and ideals which lighted me on the way and time after time to give me new courage to face life cheerfully have been the truth, goodness, and beauty. Everyone has a gift for something, even if it's the gift of being a good friend. And here's a prime condition of success. The great success, concentrate your energy, thought of capital exclusively upon the business. Concentrate your energy, thought, and capital exclusively on the business in which you are engaged. Having begun one line, resolve to fight on that one line and lead in it. Adopt every improvement, have the best machinery, and know the most about it. The older you get, the stronger the wind gets, and it's always in your face. The old days were the old days, and they do have great days, but now is now. When a man asks himself what he meant by action, he proves it isn't a man of action. Action is a lack of balance. In order to act, you must be somewhat insane. A reasonably sensible man is satisfied with thinking. A great thing about getting older is that you don't lose all the other ages that you've been. In the midst of all the doubts have been discussed in the 4,000 years of 4,000 ways save his course to do something against one's conscience. With this, the secret, the one to enjoy one's life, is have no fear of death. Every time I think that I'm getting old and gradually going to the grave, something else happens. The fear of death is virtually meaningless. We need to have the humility to know that in death, we're in the company of countless others, and that death is the only certain destiny that awaits us. I'm not overly preoccupied with death, but rather by the enormous question mark it represents. It is nothingness. It's possible it is not that when your great adventure lies ahead. That's possible. If it's not, then what is a great adventure that lies ahead? When you get my age, life seems to be a little bit more one long march to and from the lavatory. A woman I graduated from college with a told plastic surgery was vulgar in the lines of the sign of character, but is beautiful to age. I said, bull, character is internal, and you want to present yourself to the world with a facelift. Why the hell not? Many women approaching 50 don't feel glamorous, they feel invisible. I think they mean sexually invisible, and if they send out the right vibes, they won't be. When one has reached 81, one likes to sit back and let the world turn by itself without trying to push it. If you knew you were going to die tonight, or merely that you would have to go away and never return, would you look upon men and things for the last time, see them the same light that you have hurt those seen them? Or would you love as if you never have loved? I'm an old man and I have known many troubles, but most of them have never happened. If you were to die tonight and know it, and looking back at everything that you've seen, wouldn't you love them like you've never loved them? H.L. Mencken told me that once he answered all of his mail, pleasant, unpleasant, he wrote, "You may be right, but that's the way I feel now. It is in the realm of possibility, just barely, that I could be one of those who's wrong. Choose well. Your choice is brief and yet endless. I get up before anyone else in the household, not because my sleep has deserted me, but because of advancing years, because an intense eagerness to live draws me from my bed. I'm so unattracted to staying in bed. I'm so drawn to living. However often the thread may be torn out of my hands, you must develop enough to be patient, to wind it up again and again. Age only matters when one is aging. Now that I've arrived at a great age, I must just as well be 20. Now, supposing the caterpillars have an annual meeting, the local society of caterpillars, and an older caterpillar says, "You know, it's an extraordinary thing that we are all going to be butterflies." "Okay," the caterpillar says, "you're a poor fool. You're an old man who's frightened of dying. You're inventing something that's to comfort you." Well, these are the things that people say to me when I'm looking forward to dying, because I know when I'm going to go into eternity. You see, after age 70, it's a patch. During much of my life, I was anxious to be what someone else wanted me to be. Now I've given up that struggle, and I am what I am. One of the things that happen to me when you get older is that your ear hairs really start growing. Can't stand them, so I wax them out. Barber pours wax in and out of my ears, lets it settle, then pulls it out. You can hear a ripping noise as the hairs come out. One starts to get young at the age of 60, and then it's too late. One must wager into the future and save the life of a single child. No effort is superfluous. To make a tired old man smile is to perform an essential task. To defeat injustice and misfortune is only for in one instant. For a single victim, it's to invent a new reason to hope. I'm delighted to find that even in my great ages comes to me the pursuit of development in which could be required another lifetime. What a strange thing is memory and hope, for one to look backward and the other forward, and one is today and the other is tomorrow. Memory is history recorded in our brain. Memory is a painter. It paints pictures of the past and of the day. Never feel self-pity. The most destructive emotion there is self-pity. How awful to be caught up in a terrible squirrel cage of self. A man is not only as long as he's seeking something. A man is not old as long as he's seeking something. What remains to me and the strength becomes more precious from what is lost. I've lost one ear, but am never so alive with sweet sounds of now. My sight is far impaired from the brightness from which nature is revealed to me in the youth of a dimmed. And I look now for the nature to see some joy as now. My limbs soon tire, and I felt such privilege for me to look out in the open air under the sky in sight of infinity of creation. And at this moment I'm almost thinking my simple food, eaten by rule, never relished so well. Never relished so well. I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful for them, my earthly tabernacle through does creak and shake not a little. What remains to me is strength becomes more precious for than lost. I've lost one ear, which never so alive to sweet sounds of now. My sight is impaired from the brightness in which nature has revealed me, and a youth is dimmed. I've never looked at nature with such a pure joy as now. My limbs soon tire, and never felt such a privilege for me about the open air and under sky and sight of infinity of creation, and to look into the open air into the sky of infinity of creation. As to this moment, I've almost think that my simple food eaten by rule was never relished so well. I am grateful then for my earthly tabernacle through it does creak and shake not a little. Life has got to be lived. That's all there is to it. For the first time, I've lately become aware of the fact that the period of our earthly existence is limited. During this whole of my life, this idea has never actually come into my mind. It's occurred to me distinctly when I was looking at an old tree there in the garden. When we came, it was very small. I looked at it from above. Now it's high above my head and seems to say, "Hey, you too soon will depart, and I shall stay here to hundreds of years, and I shall stay here for hundreds of more years." There's that. You only hear the old and you feel the business, which is the fine point. And you can't stay to Shirley Temple as a good loop shoe lollipop. Good ship lollipop forever. Sooner or later, damn it, you're old. That's that. The only is the old as you feel. You're only as old as you feel. And there's that you're only as old as you feel business, which is fine to a point. But you can't be Shirley Temple on the good ship lollipop forever. Sooner or later, damn it, you're old. I'm profoundly grateful to old age, which has increased my eagerness for conversation and taken away that food and drink. And as an old man looking back at one's life, it's only the things that strikes you most forcibly, the things that taught one anything is suffering, not success, not happiness, not anything like that. The only thing that really teaches us one about is the joy of understanding, the joy of coming to contact, is that life really signifies is suffering, affliction. Whenever a man's friends begin to compliment him about looking young, he may be sure they think he's getting old. Age seldom arrives smoothly or quickly. It's more often a succession of jerks. One of the greatest handicaps is the fear to mistake. Have you been stopping yourself? Have you not moved forward into that arena, not just to wait for the perfection situation for the perfect moment? If you have to make a mistake, it's better to make a mistake of action than one of inaction. If you had the opportunity again, it would take chances. If I had the opportunity again, I would take chances. They say stress is a killer, but I think no stress is equally deadly, especially as you get older. If your days just seem to slip away without your highs and lows, without some anxieties and pulse-quickening occurrences, you may not be really living. I'm just the same age as I've always been. It's really something of a feat to have lived 75 years in spite of illness, germs, accidents, disasters, wars, and now every fresh day finds me more filled with wonder and better qualified to draw that last drop of delight from it. People always talk to me about death and what death is like, and I tell them it's glorious. It's the easiest thing that you'll ever have to do. Life is hard. Life is a struggle. Life is like going to school. You were given many lessons, and the more you learn, the harder the lessons become. Every day is my old age. It's more important than I can say. It will never return. And when one takes leave of life, one notices how much one has left undone. In July, when I bury my nose in the hazel bush, I feel 15 years old again. It's good. It smells of love. A life directly chiefly toward the fulfillment of personal desires will sooner or later always lead to bitterness. A life directed chiefly towards fulfillment of personal desires will always sooner or later lead to bitterness. It is at the beginning of the end that you discover you have style. It is the beginning of the end when you discover you have style. I am perhaps the oldest musician in the world. I am the oldest man in many senses, and the youngest man is what you want to be young. Young all over the life, young all over in my life, to say things of the world that are true. The closest years of life are like the end of the masquerade party when the masks are dropped. The closest years of life are at the end of like the end of a masquerade party when the masks are dropped. Last night I had a typical cholesterol-free dinner. Baked squash, skim milk, gelatin. I'm sure that it will not make my life any longer, but I know it's going to seem longer. With a typical cholesterol-free dinner, baked squash, skimmed milk, gelatin, one can savor sights and sounds more deeply when one gets really old. It may be the last time you see sunsets or trees or snow. You know, the winter, the sea, a lake, all become as childhood, magical and great wonder, then seem for the first time. Now perhaps for the last. Music, birds, the winds, waves. One listens to tones deeper, delights in appreciation, loving well, to borrow from the Shakespeare's 73rd sonnet, in which I must leave or long. My experience has been in a short 75 years is the end when you fight for a desperate cause to have good reasons to fight, and you usually win. Winter is on my head, but eternal spring is in my heart, and near the approach of the end is playing around the immortal symphonies and the worlds which invites me. And half a century has been writing thoughts and prose, verse, history and drama, romance, tradition, satire, ode, and song. I have tried them all. I have felt and not said the thousandth part of which is within me, and I go down to the grave and I can say I have finished my day's work. I cannot say I have finished my life's work. I'm incredibly lucky to still be around doing all the things I want to do, getting extremely well paid for it. There's a parallel with the golf. It's a lot of things in the mind, and the moment you start to lose enthusiasm or appetite, it affects your judgment and decisions, and then you stop performing well. I think enthusiasm and appetite are the most important, or more important than anything. The young man who has not wept is a savage, and the old man who will not laugh is a fool. Life is moments, day by day, not by chronometer or contractual commitment by God. The digit of one's age does not correspond to the arrhythmia of one's heart or to the secret chemistry of one's lymph nodes that mysteriously are going rancid, can't betray us despite all surgery, dentistry, other conjure-friendly amenities that money buys, nor do good work keep you off the undertaker's slab. But cheeriness, maybe yes, cheery, lean little guys do seem to squeeze an extra decade out of the miser above. The greatest dignity to be found in death is the dignity that life that preceded it. Hope resides in the meaning of what our lives have been. It reduces itself to this. You may have been in the right place at the right time, but when it comes to that, you better have something to bawl. Age puzzles me. I thought it was quite a time. My 70s were interesting, fairly serene, but my 80s are passionate. I grow more intense as I age. Reporter: what do you expect the future to be like? Very old woman: very short. It takes me all life to learn how not to play. I have had dreams and I've had nightmares, and I've overcome the nightmares because of my dreams. I've learned to read the papers calmly, and I do not hate the fools I read about. We need to find God, and He cannot be found in noise and restlessness. God is the friend of silence. See how nature, trees, flowers, grass grows in silence. See the stars, moon, and the sun. See how they move in silence. We need silence to be able to be in touch with the souls. After your death, you will be what you were before your rebirth. After your death, you will be what you were before your birth. As long as life comes from me, feel nearer to truth, yet it won't go into the woods, so I say I can convey it. I can't, and I want to. I can't, and I want to. I want to tell people approaching the perhaps fearing age that time is a discovery, and if they say, oh, what? I can only answer what must find in ourselves, otherwise I won't be discovery. I want to say, if at the end of your life you have only yourself, it is much. Look, you will find. However top lofty an idealistic man may be, he can always rationalize his right to earn money. If I had a life to live over again, I'd make the same mistakes, only sooner. I've seen and believed goodness and indefiable quality, which is immediate and unhesitatingly recognized in most different kinds of men, and the simple goodness of old nurses to the mother and large family, the more complex and costly goodness of a priest, a doctor, or a teacher. At 70, I would say the advantage is that to take life more calmly. You have this too shall pass, because remember, this too shall pass. Go ahead and it. Too much easier to apologize after something has been done than to get permission ahead of time. Tomorrow I shall be 69. But I do not seem to care. I do not start an affair, and I have not been consulted about it in any type of step. Once upon a time, Chong Chao dreamt that there was a butterfly fluttering happily like a butterfly. He was conscious only of happiness as a butterfly, unaware of the Chong Chao, unaware that he was Chong Chao. Suddenly he awakened, and there he was veritably Chong Chao himself. And he does not know whether he was the butterfly was a dream of Chong Chao, or whether Chong Chao is a dream of the butterfly. Life itself is a proper binge. When I was young, I used to have successes with women because I was young. Now I have successes with women because I am old. Middle age was the hard part. Oh, death is no problem for me. If I go while we're talking, I'm ready. My mother had a wonderful philosophy on that. Every time she lost somebody, it was, well, there's one thing we don't know the answer to, and now he knows it. There's one thing we don't know the answer to, and now he knows it. Lifelong enemies are, I think, as hard as to make as important as one's well-being as friends. When I was young, I used to observe 9 out of 10 things I did were failures, so I did 10 times more work. As age, I noticed my body doing something, and I wanted to see what it was doing. I don't want to interfere with that. I know something. I don't. It's being pregnant. I don't know how to the age accepts intellectually, but the body knows. At first, I think it noticed a thought to the menopause because I saw my body was getting rid of everything it needed to produce another person to retain, in which it was necessary to support one person. It was a process I was observing, not directly it giving some respect for the wisdom of the body, the feminine Steinman. I regret having been polite in the past. I'd like to trample on at least a dozen people. I regret having been so polite in the past. I'd like to have trampled on at least a dozen people. I don't know whether or not my life has been success or failure, but not of having anxiety about becoming one instead of the other. I've just taken things as they came along. I've had a lot of extra time to enjoy life. Our greatest glory is not to never falling, but in rising every time we fall is the greatest glory. But what signifies our wishing? Things happen after all as they are going to happen. I've snug into the wishing song 1,000 times when I was young, and now find in a 4 that 3 contraries have befallen me. Being a subject to gout and to the stone, being yet another master of all my passions, like the proud girl in my country who wished to be resolved not to marry a parson, not a Presbyterian nor an Irishman, at the length found herself married to an Irish Presbyterian parson. My idea of forgiveness is letting go of the resentment that does not serve you better interests, ridding yourself of negative thoughts, all that make you miserable. Believe me, you can feel and fret the fume all you want, but whoever was the wronged you is not suffering from your anguish whatsoever. You can't reach old age by another man's road. My habits protect my life and would be assassinate to you. You can't reach an age by another man's road. My habits protect my life, but they would assassinate you. When I was 40, I was looking at 60, it seeming like thousands of miles away, but now at 60, it feels like a week and a half away from 80. I must now get on with those things that I've talked about doing and I've always been putting off. Perhaps the most important thing are those that you don't remember in a precise way that we remember unconsciously. Beyond the age of 80, the perspectives of lifetime whether shrink like your else, feel that your mortal car is straddling, median line and your right-hand wheels are rumbling in this world with other two in the other road. The longer I live, the more beautiful life becomes. When I was young, I was amazed to Pillard's statements, and the elder Cato began the age of 80 and learned Greek. I'm amazed the longer old age is ready to undertake this take of youth, shirked because it would take too long. With grace combines with wrinkles, with admirable. And it is admirable, there is an indescribable light of dawn, that intensity happens with happy old age. The young man is handsome, but the old are superb. Young man, the secret of my success is that in early age, I discovered I was not God. Growing old is not nice, but it is interesting. When we call the past, we usually find that there's the simplest thing, not the great occasions that retrospective give off a greatest glory of happiness. One thing I've certainly learned not to have is good opinion of myself. I don't think anyone bounces back and sounds as easy, but you can work through it, and you can work through it. I don't want to sound corny, but I prayed a lot. I could have been destroyed. Hadn't had a religious strong strength, so sure I've had some tough breaks, but I'll tell you myself, I'm not down and I have not drowned yet. To me, old age is always 50 years older than I am. Social pressure is the enemy. I've seen it happen as long as heaven's name are going to find you in your own track or ways doing the society tells you to do. I've always spent a year teaching in a busy prep school. That was the crowd where I was trying to make up their minds, you know? I've seen them since, and those who followed into their zeal and their bliss, and they've had led decent, wonderful lives. Those had the dads, those who do it because of a safe found out and it's not safe at all. It's a disaster. I've adored life and I don't fear death. I just prefer to die as late as possible. Like our shadows, our wishes strengthen as sun declines. A man 90 years old who asked how to attribute his longevity, I reckon he said with a twinkle in his eye, "It's because most insights I went to bed and slept when I should have sat up and worried." To every man it's given a key to the gates of heaven. The same key opens the gates of hell. The average man generally feels once in his life the full happiness of love and once the joy of freedom. Once in his life he hates bitterly. Once in a deep grief, he buries the loved one, and once finally he dies himself. It's too little for the innate capacity to love, hate, and enjoy and suffer. We exercise daily and strengthen our muscles and sinews, that we may not degenerate. But our spiritual organs, which may create a lifetime full of activity, remain unused, undeveloped, and so that our passing years, they lose their productive power. If you think you can, or you can. If you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you're right. Most people are such fools that they really have no regret, that they have no great compliment to say that a man is above the average. Most people are such great fools that it is really no great compliment to say that a man is above the average. In the last analysis, getting old is an aspect of transitoriness of human existence, but the transitoriness can only be a strong motivation for the responsibilities of our recognition and responsibilities of a basic human existence. In our proper to repeat the longotherapeutic maxim as I formulated, it is in a dream. Live as if you were already living for a second time and as if you had to make the mistakes you were about to make now. And indeed, one's sense of responsibility can be lightened in such a fictive autobiographical view of one's own life. Try to keep yourself young and quivering right to old age and imagine right up to the brink of death that life is only beginning. Life is only beginning. I think that the only way to keep adding to one's talent is to one's affection, to one's inner happiness. Be affected with the fact that life is just beginning. Once as Eugene, Oregon, after the lecture has said and dealt with age stages described by Dante, this young woman comes up to me and says, "Well, Mr. Campbell, don't you understand today we go directly from infancy to wisdom?" I said, "That's marvelous. All you've missed is life." In a curious way, age is simpler than youth, for it has so many fewer options. The tragedy of life is not a fact of death. Tragedy of life is that one dies inside of a man while he lives. The death of genuine feelings, the death of inspired response, the death of awareness, what makes it possible to feel the pain and the glory of other men in oneself. No man need fear death. He needs only to fear he may die without having know of his greatest powers, the power of his free will to give his life for others. Success is a two-bladed golden sword. It knights one and stabs one at the same time. Don't ever underestimate the importance of money. I know it's often been said that money won't make you happy, and it's undeniably true that everything else be equal is a lovely thing to have around the house. The woman who has the gift for old age is the woman who delights in comfort, warmth, and knows that the blessings of bed, bath, and best like food and drinks are regarded as fresh delights. Then you know you thrive when you're old. It's better to be approximately right than precisely wrong. I do not believe that true optimism can come about except through tragedy. Age is nothing but experience, and some of us are more experienced than others. I do not believe that true optimism can come about except through tragedy. I've asked myself the question, what do you want of life? And you realize to start to recognition in the terror exactly what I have, but to the commensurate is to handle it all better. If we do not know about life, how can we know about death? Old age is like climbing a mountain. The climb you climb the ledge, the higher you get, the more tired and breathless you become, and the more views become your extensive. Only in the whole age comes more gently to those who have the doorway into the abstract world, art of philosophy or learning, regions where the years have scarcely noticed and the young and the old can meet in a pale, truthful light. You can't have everything, even in California. There's a certain kind of carefree that returns to the old age, different from the carefree of youth that you didn't know any better. It's more of being free, of caring. It isn't joyous at all. It isn't joyous at all as it was in the youth, but it's a kind of freedom, and all kinds of freedoms are precious in some type of way. Obey the voice within. It commands to give ourselves and help others. As long as we have a capacity to give, we are alive. To be astonished is to be the surest way of not growing old too quickly, to be astonished. Don't complain about the old age. How much good is it brought to be unexpected of the beautiful? I concluded from one that the end of old age in life will be just unexpectedly beautiful. No matter how old a mother is, she watches her middle-aged children for signs of improvement. I've always been in the right place at the right time, of course. I steered myself there. To enter the country of old age, of new experience, is different from what you're supposed to be. Nobody, man or woman, knows the country until he has lived in it and has taken it into his citizen papers. If I had my life to live over again, I would have made a rule to read more poetry, listen to some music at least once a week, but perhaps part of my brain now atrophied would be thus been kept active through use. The loss of these tastes and loss of happinesses may possibly be injurious to the intellect and more probably a moral character by enfeebling the emotional part of our nature. That's the difference between a champ and a knife thrower. The champ may have lost the stuff temporarily and permanently, can't be sure, but when you can no longer throw his high one, he throws his heart instead. He throws something. He just doesn't walk off and mound and weep. I am aware of life. I am aware that life has never been perfect, never absolute, but bestows contentment, even in a fearlessness, separation, detachment, and death. I look upon another's insistence on the merits of his or her life's duties, intellect, accomplishments, and see the most of its nonsense. And me, hell, I'm a genius, and I am a fraud. Sometimes I wonder whether I'm giving up too much for the theater, but I have one big consolation: money. The real challenge is not simply to survive hell. Hell, anyone can do that. To survive, it's to survive as yourself undiminished. Discussing how old you are is the temple of boredom. Life is the combination of magic and pasta, of fantasy and reality. At my age, getting a second doctor's opinion is kind of like switching slot machines. Old age hangs on what you like. Old age hangs on you like an old overcoat. The years seem to rush now, and I think the death of fast approaching end of a journey, double and treble reasons for loving as well as working while it is a day. Hell begins on a day when God grants us clear vision of all that we might have achieved, of all the gifts from which might have been wasted and which we might have done but which we did not do. For me, the conception of hell lies in 2 words: too late. At 20, a man full of fight and hope. He wants to reform the world. When he's 70, he still wants to reform the world, but he knows that he can't. Celebrate your success and find humor in the failures. Don't take yourself so seriously. Loosen up and everyone around you will loosen up. Have fun and always show enthusiasm. When all else fails, put on your costume and sing a silly song. The story of love is not important. What is important is that you're capable of love, and perhaps the only glimpse that we are permitted of eternity. When you know you're right, you don't care what others think. You know sooner or later it will come out in the wash. Why end of war the straightened road of life? Why end of war to straighten the road of life? The faster we travel, the less there is to see. When you're younger, you get blamed for crimes you never committed, and when you're older, you begin to get credit for virtues you never possessed. It evens itself out. I live now on borrowed time, waiting in the afternoon for the summons of inevitably to come, and I go on to the next thing, whatever it is. One luckily doesn't have to bother about that. Old age equalizes. We are unaware that what is happening to us is happening in untold numbers from the beginning of time. When we are young, we act as if we were the first young people in the world. I'm going to be 80 soon. I guess the one thing that puzzles me most is how quick I got there. Old age is like everything else. To make a success of it, you've got to start young. Let us cherish and love old age. Love and cherish old age, for it's the full of pleasure, for you know how to use it. The best morsel is reserved for last. When young, beware of fighting. When strong, beware of sex. When old, beware of possession. I hope I have a young outlook. Since I have old everything else, then this is my chance of having a bit of youth as part of me. Have a young outlook. Living his life of torment, disappointment, and love and sacrifices, golden sunsets and black storms. I said that some time ago, and today, I do not think I would add one word. Don't grow old without money, honey. Money is boring. When you get to my age, you don't know what to spend it on. When I was your age, I was money, 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 save, save. Now does it matter? From my experience of life, I believe my personal motto would be aware of men bearing flowers. Give me all the luxuries of life and I will willingly do without the necessities. While you drink and call for garlands and perfumes for maidens, old age is creeping on us unperceived. The only sin is mediocrity. Life has taught me not for the faults of which we disliked and even hated, but for our qualities. The great secret of old people shares that they really haven't changed in 70 or 80 years. Our bodies change, but you don't change at all, and that, of course, causes great confusion. 20 can be expected to tolerate 60 in all things, and 60 gets bored stiff with 20 eternal love affairs. Old age is an excellent time for outrage. My goal is to say to do or at least one outrageous thing every week. 60 years ago, I knew everything. Now I know nothing. Education is a progressive discovery of our own ignorance. It is one of the mysteries of our nature that a man, all unprepared, can take enough thunderbolt like that and live. There is no but unreasonable explanation of it. The intellect stunned by the shock, but groping gathers meaning of the words. The power to realize the full, important, merciful lackingness is that to take the mind in memorable months, passable years, gather together details, thus learn and know that the whole extent of the loss. Mark Twain, it's life, isn't it? It's life, isn't it? You plow ahead and make a hit. You plow in some, and some passes you, and then some passes them. Time levels. Inside every 70-year-old is a 35-year-old asking, what happened? My rule of life prescribed an absolutely sacred right, smoking cigars and also drinking the alcohol before and after, and it's said to be during all meals, intervals between them. Is the rule of life prescribed as an absolute sacred right? Smoking cigars and also drinking alcohol before and after if you need be, during all meals and intervals between them. I personally have succeeded in life nearly 85 years without taking any trouble about my diet. During my long life, I've learned one lesson, that the most important thing is to realize one is alive. I think it's not to build bridges or tall bridges or to make money, but to do something truly important, to do something for humanity, to bring joy or hope, make a life richer with the spirit because you've been alive. What is the most important thing? That is the most important thing. I'm old enough, and I'm old enough to tell the truth. It is one of the privileges of age. Do not grow old no matter how long you live. Never cease to stand like curious children before a great mystery into which you were born. Luck is divided of sweat. The more you sweat, the luckier you get. When I was young, there was no respect for the young, and now that I'm old, there's no respect for the old. I missed out coming and going. Humor keeps the elderly rolling along, singing a song, with the laugh in its evolution, involuntary explosion of the lungs. The lungs need to replenish themselves with oxygen, so you laugh and you breathe and the blood runs, everything circulating. If you don't laugh, you'll die. It may be necessary temporarily to accept a lesser evil, but one must never label necessary evil as good. The best way to adjust, is ignore most of the negative thoughts which are aging, is to say to yourself with conviction, I'm still the very same person I've been all my adult life. You are, you know. Any life, no matter how long you complex it may be made of a single moment, a moment which a man finds out, once and for all, who he is. When I was young, I found out what the big toe always ends up making a hole in a sock, so I stopped wearing socks. If you've never been hated by your children, you've never been a parent. Old age is like a plane flying through a storm. Once you're aboard, there's nothing you can do. Friend, you are divine to mingle, mangle in the guts and stardust. So hang there. If the doors are open for me, then they can open for anybody. It is in the nature of things that you take a form to dissolve again. Strive with your whole being to attain perfection. I avoid fried meats, which angry up the blood. If your stomach disputes you, life and down pacify the cool thoughts. Keep the juices flowing, jangling around gently as you move. Go very light in light vices and such carrying on society. So social ramble ain't restful. Avoid running at all times. Don't look back. Something may be gaining on you. I like living. I have something been wildly, despairingly, acutely miserable, racked in sorrow, but through it all, I still know, quite certainly, just to be alive is a grand thing. If I've known when I was 21 that I should be happy as I am now, I would have been sincerely shocked. They promised me wormwood and a funeral raven. We're all this little greedy. Some of us are plenty greedy, but we're all somewhat courageous, so all considerably cowardly. We're all imperfect in a life simply perpetual, unending struggling against those imperfections. We're all of us a little greedy. Some of us are plenty greedy. We're all somewhat courageous, and we're all considerably cowardly. We're all imperfect And life is simply a perpetual, unending struggle against those imperfections. To be 70 years young is sometimes far more cheerful and hopeful than to be 40 years old. I look up to death to be as necessary for a constitution as sleep. We shall rise refreshed in the morning. There was never a great character who did not sometimes smash the routine, regulations, and make new ones for himself. I'm 80 years old. There seems to be nothing to add to this statement. I have reached the age of undercorrected facts, facts that refuse to be softened by sentiment and confused by nobility and phrase. I've never, ever really learned how to live, and I've discovered too late that life is for living. A schoolmaster of mine long ago said, you can only learn from second raters. First raters around the range, you can't even see how they get their effects. If he has given up from marvelous gifts, it is that he does not permit us to know the future. I would be unbearable. It would be unbearable. If he has given us one marvelous gift, it is that he does not permit us to know the future. It would be unbearable. The average man who does not know what to do with his life wants another which will last forever. My eyes have seen much, but they are not weary. My ears have heard much, but they thirst for more. Hold fast to time, use it, be conscious of it each day, each hour. Don't let it slip away unnoticed at all, easily and swiftly. During my 80 years, I have witnessed a whole succession of technological revolutions, but none of them has done away with the need and character. None of them has done away with the need for character in an individual or an ability to think. What I hate most in life are people who are not really the peach of the day, from which the young and sexy, from which you want to be young and sexy, who can fool nobody. You can fool nobody. There's nothing in this moment to have and accept to somebody else is younger and fresher and hotter. Life is not a beauty contest. What you hate the most in life are people who are not really the peach of the day, but who want to be young and sexy and can fool nobody. There's a moment when you have to accept that somebody else is younger and fresher and hotter. Life's not a beauty contest. No endeavor that is worthwhile is simple in prospect. If it is right, it will be simple in retrospect. How old should you be if you didn't know how old you was? The great man is one who never loses his child's heart. I want to die young at an advanced stage. Keep looking tan, live in an elegant building, even if you're in the cellar. Be seen in smart restaurants, even if your nurse wants to drink, And if you borrow big. You end up as you deserve. In an old age, you must put up with the face and friends and health and the children that you have earned. If you'd be a young man again and had to decide to make your living, I would not to try to become a scientist or a teacher. I would rather choose to be a plumber or a peddler in the hope to find modest degree of independence still available under present circumstances. Unfortunately, many people do not consider fun or the important item of a daily agenda. For me, that was always high priority in whatever I was doing. When my mother was dying, talking to me, she said, always try to be kind and nice to people. And if you do that, somebody will always speak up for you. And I found to be a fact that they really do. I found the best way to give your advice to your children is to find out what they want and advise them to do it. Don't believe all the baloney people are telling you, what they're prescribing or describing what they're doing or what they're going to do for you someday. Don't believe it all the baloney people describe what they're going to do for you someday. Get the money. The future, life unwritten, books and unborn children, you don't talk about it. The future, like unwritten books and unborn children, you don't talk about it. Never lose. Rules to live by. Number 1, never lose interest in life and the world. Eat sparingly in regular hours. Take plenty of exercise, but do not too much. Get plenty of sleep. Never allow yourself to become annoyed. Set daily schedules of life and keep it. Get a lot of sunlight. Drink as much milk as you will agree with you. Obey with the doctor and consult with him often. Don't overdo things. Financial Rockefeller rules. He who knows others is learned. He who knows others is learned. He who knows himself is wise. 80 years old, no eyes left, no ears, no teeth, no legs, no wind. And when it's all said and done, how astonishing well one does without them. No, I haven't found any pattern at all of life itself, but it's probably none to the birth to growth to decay and to death, and something all we know is just to start. I've never made the mistake of being 70 again. I'll never make the mistake of being 70 again. I look at my window over and over a lake, and I see a white face, only in the white hair, and I've lost my youth. I shall never find it again. Useless to stir the lake water. My yesterdays walk with me. They keep step. Their faces peer over my shoulders. Nothing, of course, begins at the time you think it did. I have a simple philosophy. Fill what's empty, empty what's full, and scratch where it itches. Only one thing I'm sure of is when I dreamed I'm always ageless. Nothing depresses me anymore. For a while your life worries about the passage of time and getting old, and after a while you just say, my God, does it matter? Get on with it. Literally thousands of wonderful friends have accomplished me and accompanied me in life, and many await me in the secret eternity to come. I have enjoyed a long voyage. Lots of old people don't get wise, but you don't get wise unless you get age. What I have done to achieve longevity: woken up each morning and tried to remember not to wear my hearing aid in the bath. We observe feels of which we're doing in the drop of the ocean. We ourselves feel that we are doing what we are doing is just a drop in the ocean. But if a drop was not in the ocean, I think the ocean would be less because of the missing drop. I really thought I could do something to change the world. I soon found out that I could change the world, but the best thing to do is to change myself and learn to live with it. Pray for the dead and fight like hell for the living. I don't like people who have fallen and stumbled. Their virtue lifeless isn't much of value. Life hasn't revealed its beauty to them. I don't like people who have never fallen or stumbled. Their virtue is lifeless, and it isn't much value. Life hasn't revealed its beauty to them. The trick is growing up without growing old. People need to fall and stumble. Life has taught me that it only owes better plans than we can imagine, so that we can submerge my own desires, apt to be too insistent unto the calm willingness to accept what comes and to make the most of it. Then wait again. I've discovered that there is a pattern larger than, more beautiful than the short vision that we weave. Zen student: what happens after death? Master: I do not know. The student: how can that be? You are Zen. The master: but I am a dead Zen master. I don't look to jump over 7-foot bars. I look around 1-foot bars that I could step over. A sign of growing old is when the interviewer starts asking you, what would you do differently if you had your life to live over again? I give some sort of answer because I don't wish to be rude, but I don't tell them to imagine it comes into my mind because they could think of it being vain and frivolous, for no one wants to hear a subject of ridicule. I see myself as a tall, skinny Fellini vigorously lifting weights, and that's what I would do differently if I would lift weights. When you're through with sex, with ambition, what can the old man create? Art, of course. A piece of art will go beyond him in the lives of young people, and people who haven't had time to create, the old man meets the young people and lives on. While people keep waiting and waiting for something big to happen in their life, now passing them by does not know how the fast of now passes, and at the rate of 186,000 miles per second, the speed of light. So no matter how much that you love and enjoy particular now, that's how fast it becomes and was. That's what never was the word if anymore, and if is never was. While people are waiting and waiting for something big to happen in life, the now is passing by. Do you know how fast now passes? At the rate of 186,000 miles per hour, the speed of light. So no matter how much you love and enjoy a particular now, that's how fast it becomes a was. That was is never used for the word if anymore, and if is never was. When Goya in 80, he drew an ancient man, propped his 2 sticks with a great mass of white and hair, beard all over his face, and an inscription: I am still learning. There are 2 things to aim in life. First, to get what you want, and then go after and enjoy it. Only the wisest of mankind achieve the second, is to enjoy it. Life is a tragedy when seen up close, but a comedy in a long shot. Never contradict, never explain, never apologize. Those are the secrets of a happy life. The man who works and is never bored is never old. Work and interest is a worthwhile thing and the best of the remedy for age. Each day I am reborn. Each day I must begin again. It's worth asking, what do you want? It gets harder to answer as you get older. The answers get subtle and subtler. Human life, indeed all life, is poetry, as we who live it unconsciously day by scenes and play, yet inevitably wholeness and lives in us to composes. This is something far different from the old cliche. Turn your lives into the work of art. We are works of art, but we are not the artists. Dying is very dull, dreary affair, and my advice to you is to have nothing whatsoever to do with it. A stockbroker urged me to buy some stock that would triple in value every year. I told him, at my age, I don't even buy green bananas. If A is a success in life, then A equals X plus Y plus Z. Work is X, Y is play, and Z is keeping your mouth shut. So, if A is a success in life, then A equals X plus Y plus Z. Work is X, Y is play, and Z is keeping your mouth shut. Life is constantly providing us with new funds, new resources, even in the reduced and immobility. In life's ledger, there is no such thing as frozen assets. The older I get, the greater power I seem to have to help the world. I'm like a snowball. The further I'm rolled, the more I gain. The age doesn't matter unless you're a cheese.